All right, good morning, everybody. So, Facebook's live stream just absolutely will not play with Keynote and let you share your screen. So, we're gonna have a recording, but this is good nonetheless. The only bad thing is you can't ask questions directly, and I can't answer them right now. So, if you have questions throughout this, please drop them in the comments so I can get back to you and answer those questions, and I know that you will. So, please do that. So, unfortunately, like I said, can't do it live, but this is just as good. And so I got cut off very rudely by Facebook's live stream earlier, as I was saying that this is not the whole picture. This is one of those things, however, and why we still teach it, is that you can take it today. If you're going to the gym later today, you can take the content in this presentation or in the seminar and have a much better workout. The only thing I will say is it requires skill and practice. So it's one of those things that over time you get better and better and better, and it's just a matter of getting reps in, quite literally repetitions. And it can improve the quality of your training and results almost instantly. So what we are talking about, obviously, is high quality training. This is obviously excluding your programming, which we're not going to talk a lot. We're going to talk a little bit about today, but we're not going to focus on your stress, your nutrition, your sleep, your recovery, all that stuff. But without any further ado, here's high quality training: how to work out the right way, execute on your workout plans with a high degree of quality, and how to not train like an Instagram influencer and actually get the results that you're after. So here's what we want to achieve today. We want to instantly improve our workouts. I'm going to make sure that I'm still recording. Yes. The content that we have today is going to help you instantly improve your workouts. You're not going to end up following sucky training protocols, because a lot of people will see a workout, it looks fancy, they're sold on the logic of it, whatever, and they end up following something that doesn't produce results, even if they do it at a high degree of quality. So what we're talking about today, they execute it well, it's just not scientifically sound, so it doesn't work, and then you put all this effort in for absolutely nothing. So we're going to make sure that you're not doing that. A lot of people do that. A lot of people do that over and over again because they don't know the basics. They don't know the foundational tenets of exercise and exercise science and how you change your body and your physique for your specific goals. And we're going to talk about your specific goals and how those change with your training as well. So I also want you to stop getting spun in circles, searching for a silver bullet. A lot of people, again, search and they think, like, well, that workout plan didn't work, but really it was because they didn't execute it properly. So some people will take a good workout plan, good programming, and just not execute it well. And because they're doing such low quality training, even though they have a high quality program, it doesn't translate to any results. So they search and think that there's something wrong with them. There's something that they're missing. And it's not true. I hear this all the time in nutrition as well. Well, how am I supposed to eat for my body type? How am I supposed to eat for that? What? And they search. When the truth is they just don't know what the basics are and that they exist. And nobody's actually sat down and told them that so that they can execute on those things consistently over time and get results all of a sudden. And it's never something super, super complex. What we're going to talk about today is going to go kind of deep. But let me get back here. What we have to start with today is we want to change your paradigm around training. So I want you to change the way that you think about exercise, because what you've been taught about exercise is probably wrong. And we can't not with me, Appalachian, we cannot have quality training if we carry a low quality training philosophy. And what you don't realize is you have a training philosophy. You may not know what it is, but it is in here. What you think about when you think about exercise and how to get in shape for your goals, that is your training philosophy. One of my favorite questions to ask people when I do nutritional consultations is, if you had to design the perfect diet for you to get from point A to where you want to go, what would it look like? And that shows me their nutritional philosophy, right? So same thing for your training. And what you've been taught is probably incorrect. And let me tell you this, as a professional, as somebody whose job it is, and I don't get to eat if I'm not helping people get in shape and help people change their physiques in their body. So I got to figure out a way to do that. And what I figured out is that I spend 95% of my time helping people unlearn, not learn new stuff. Okay. So we do a lot of education, but most of what I do when I work one-on-one or in a small group of people is unlearning. And that tells me that if over the past 4 years, definitely working for money professionally doing this, that most of my time is unlearning. So that tells me that the way you think about exercise is probably, it could be, kind of in the right direction, but it may not be 100% correct. Not, saying anybody's done. This isn't common sense either as well. A lot of people kind of get embarrassed by not knowing how to exercise, but, learn how to walk and breathe and feed yourself. That's, the stuff we learn that's innate to being a human. Learning how to exercise and exercise science, that's why there's whole fields of study dedicated to it, because it's not common sense. So it's okay. And here's the thing: is the path to your goals is not how it looks on TV or Instagram. We mimic what we see, even though we shouldn't. So what we are seeing, what we're being pushed to us, whether it's Instagram, it's TV, it's a magazine, whatever it is, what we're seeing in front of us is designed to get our attention, not to show us what to do to get results, because that wouldn't get anybody's attention, because it's pretty plain and boring if you were to film it and put it on Instagram. So that said, if you were to think about what reality looks like, and performing, like going and actually doing your goals, it's going to look like what you see trainers doing in a gym, that sort of thing. The internet is not reality. So I just kind of want to throw that out there. Instead, what we should be doing is what is scientifically sound. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Another caveat I want to throw in here is that we are not here to burn as many calories as possible. That is not the job of your training. Your daily movement, taking walks, whatever, all the stuff we do to burn some extra calories, just to move our body and enjoy our movement, to keep ourselves healthy, because in modern day we have a lot more calories available to us. As a problem that has not been around in pretty much all of human history since up until the last 100 years. So yeah, we have to do a little bit of that stuff, but when you're training, when you're doing your workouts at the gym, we're not there to burn as many calories as possible. If you have 20 pounds or less to lose, you got to get that out of your head. If you got 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100, then yeah, we're going to focus on burning some calories. We're still going to focus on stuff we're talking about today. And here's the thing I want everybody to understand just from this point right here is that the type of training we're talking about today, whether you need to lose 60 pounds to get to this point, or maybe you got 10, 15, 20 pounds to lose right now. What I want you to understand is that when we leave, kind of and get to this point here, at some point, you're going to be doing this style of training for the rest of your life. This is how it goes forever. Okay. So the modality may change. You may not do resistance training. You may add in yoga. You may do circuit training. You may do all these other forms of exercise. But when you do your resistance training, it's going to look like this for the rest of your life. So we may as well make it super high quality. So we may have a step to get there. Some people have a step to get there first, but eventually you're going to land here. So even if you have a step to get here first, you're still going to want to take this information in and still apply it to when you do resistance training. So little disclaimer, this is not a programming seminar. So the workout programming, so how many sets, how many reps, what movements, in what order, in what phases over the course of 12 weeks, when things change, when they don't, all that stuff is programming. We spent 5 hours a couple of months ago with our trainers just showing them the basics of programming. So I'm not going to be able to cover programming in 30 minutes here today. But we're going to touch on it just a little bit, because you have to understand a little bit about what quality movements are and how they work. And that way you're not running around in circles chasing a bad workout program, because you can execute really great work or really bad workouts really, really well and get zero results. And you can execute really great programming with a lower degree of quality and still get good results. So programming is super important. That's why we do it for you. It's why you get it free with your membership. So quality movements, speaking of, so we're going to talk about selection today a little bit, so you know what workout that's the programming. We'll select the exercises for you, and then we'll talk mostly today about execution. So I'm going to run through this actually pretty quick, so don't freak out if you don't remember all this stuff, because you don't need to. So you can have the perfect workout split. What workouts you do when, so what workouts you do Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, what body parts you're training, all that stuff. You can have the perfect workout split, the perfect number of sets, the perfect number of reps, have it all cycled, have it all phased correctly, everything right on the money, to the T, designed for you, and swap out the movements, and that program is now garbage. That tells you how important the movements are. Movement selection is the foundation of programming. Okay. So quality movements are super, super important. So let me move my face out of the way, because that's not what you want to look at. Why are quality movements important? Well, one, not all movements are created equal. Some are absolutely worthless. Some movements you can do a million of them and get absolutely zero results. Others you can do a little bit of and get tremendous results. So that tells us that our movements are incredibly important if we want progress out of the gym. If you're just going in to have fun, that's cool. I love that. I think that's great. But most people aren't. Most people actually want to see some results from the efforts that they're putting in the drink or in the gym. So the most important, most foundational variable when we're talking about quality workouts and quality training is the movements that you do. So if you do the right movements, you're going to be good. Now, I want to talk just a touch about functional movements because you're going to hear this term a lot. It's becoming more and more popular. I'm doing functional this, functional that, whatever. I'm not talking about the people who are trying to do CrossFit and without saying CrossFit because you can't say CrossFit if you don't pay them thousands of dollars a year. So they're a functional training gym. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about which stems from that. All these things that when you hear like, oh, this is a functional movement. That's why I'm doing this because it's making me more functional. So here's the definition of a functional movement because you got to know what it is. A functional movement, I'm going to read this verbatim, is a dumb trend where people believe that getting stronger doesn't translate to your function outside of the gym. Okay. So somebody takes, for whatever reason, if I can squat 400 pounds, I can't get my groceries out of my car unless I practice getting my groceries out of my car with weight. Okay. So don't worry about functional movements. If you get strong, guess what? You're going to be more functional. And what it takes to get strong increases function because you have to have a high degree of function to get strong. Okay. And if you want to lose body fat, if you want to shape and sculpt your body, focusing on your strength increases in small incremental pieces will produce those results anyway. So, in which we're going to learn in a second. So, don't chase functional movements. They're really dumb. I had to stick that in there because it drives me absolutely insane. So, what determines a quality movement? So, we know quality movements are the most important thing, foundation of our workout frame or workout plan, and what is thus going to exclude a lot of movements. So first, we got to consider what is our goal, and that is tissue change, right? So we're not here to be more explosive. We're not here to jump super, super high. We're not here to be able to run a marathon, increase our endurance. So what are we after? Almost everybody else that doesn't fit in those categories, you're not a powerlifter, you're not a marathoner, you're not an athlete, because you're going to train differently. If so, you're here for tissue change. You want your bones to be denser. So when you fall down, you don't break them. So you don't want osteoporosis. You want to lose body fat. So you want to increase your metabolic rate. You want to see body fat start to come off just by way of your lifestyle, more or less. And you want to increase your muscle. You want to shape your body. You want to add muscle to your glutes, to your shoulders, to your chest, to your arms, wherever you want to. And you want to do that in proportion, how you like to do that. So let's talk about how those things are achieved. How's bone density achieved? So I'm talking about bone density and joint health a lot here today because this is incredibly important. And basically, bone density is not because you're lacking calcium. One, if you're smoking, if you're drinking way too much caffeine, if you're not sleeping, you're losing a lot of calcium. So yeah, you had to supplement to get it in. But I'll tell you what, it doesn't matter how much freaking calcium that you have in your body if there's no reason to deposit that calcium inside the bone because it's not being compressed, because we're a couch potato and we sit in our chair all day and we sit on a couch all day and we don't move. Or our doctor tells us to take walks, and for some reason, apparently our body weight is supposed to be enough for us to create bone change, and it's not. And we end up with bones that look like Swiss cheese, and we break our bones when we bump it into something. That's not good. What we need is force. Force creates bone density. This is one of the reasons why you gain weight a little bit whenever you start doing resistance training. And people are like, oh my gosh, I gained weight. It's like, you have denser bones. Like, come on, it doesn't matter if the scale is changing, because that's one of the best things possible. So literally, it's called Wolff's Law, which basically it says that tissues will model themselves based on the forces that are imposed upon them. And bones is one of those things. So when you compress a bone, when you're doing a leg press, when you're doing a squat, when you're doing these resistance training exercises, your body will send that calcium that apparently we have to supplement with all the time for whatever reason. We'll actually send that to the bones if it is available and make them denser. So if that is a concern to you, I know there's certainly people in our audience that are concerned about things like osteoporosis, and also who doesn't want to be able to, like, not that it wouldn't hurt, but you fall down a flight of stairs and it's like a steel rod that your skeleton's made of versus Swiss cheese. And that's what you want. You don't want to be brittle, and you don't want to break because that's no fun. So body fat, how's body fat change achieved? Well, being in a calorie deficit. What's the best way to be in a calorie deficit? It's not starve yourself and move as much as possible. It's increase your metabolic rate. And of course, we got to take walks. We got to have periods where we do 30 minutes of cardio a day for 6 weeks to lose a little bit. Then we come back out of that and go back to maintenance, because psychologically it's very challenging to do that forever and ever. And also hormonally, it's not a good idea. So, what is the best long term strategy, not just for fat loss, but also maintenance of fat loss? There's a insurance policy that you can take out against fat regain, and that is called your muscle, because your muscle consumes a lot of calories. So, increasing your muscle mass and the act of producing muscle, aka resistance training, will produce fat loss because it burns calories both passively and actively as you do it. So body fat change is going to also be achieved by the working our muscles. So we got to work a lot of muscles. How is muscle change achieved? This is kind of wraps up the other two. Is the amount of force times the surface area of the muscle trained, that force that is going into. So if you have a ton of force, so really a high load, but you have a little bit of muscle it's going into, that's not going to achieve our goals. It's not going to move the needle and push us forward. If we have a huge surface area, we're training our whole body, but it's a little bit of force, it's probably not going to be that much. And I'm not talking about just do your 1 rep max, because there's also, we do 10, 12, 15, 20 repetitions sometimes, and that is increasing our volume that is those muscles are trained upon, but that force is still there, right? So basically, this is kind of a weird example, but if you spread out all the muscles that you trained on the floor, the muscles that cover the most floor wins. Okay, so the most surface area that you train, that is what is that's the best way I can explain to you how you're going to produce results. So how do we increase our force? How do we make sure that this works? Let me see here. It's going to be our execution. So doing high quality movements, I think I said this earlier, with poor execution makes them a low quality movement. So you want to do these good movements. So these ones here that we just talked about, the ones that are going to impact the most tissues at one time, that are the most loadable, those are the ones that are going to win. Because if we do, let's say, for example, some glute kickback or this little thing, it was like, oh, I feel it right here on my hip, and it burns so good, but it's like the muscle's this big, that's not a very big surface area, it's not going to produce any results. You may have a really jacked hip flexor, for cool, if that's what you want, go for it. But most people, you're after trying to actually lose body fat and see your body start to change. We need large muscles, we need a large amount of surface area. So what does that look like? It looks like the boring basic movements that you'll see our trainers teaching people, and you'll see our clients doing all the time, and that's squats, lunges, leg presses, pull downs, rows. Just download one of our programs. You're going to see all of that stuff in there and programmed properly in the right order and in the right manner. So it's the basic movements. And the reason why I want you to understand this is so somebody's not like, oh, you lay on your side and you put a band around your neck and tie it to your foot, and then you like hop like this, and it really works your glutes. And it's like, what are we doing? We're just trying to look different, right? So and I hope that makes you laugh, but the truth is people, because they don't understand what actually produces results, we're just making stuff up out here. It's kind of like little kids when they play pretend. They're like, oh, do this, that's the fitness industry, unfortunately, for a lot of people. So if you ran track in high school and you're a decent athlete or whatever, and you just so happen to grow a little bit of muscle while you're there, apparently that makes you super qualified, if you maintain that, by the time you're 25, to teach people how to exercise. Get off my soapbox now, but anyways, do the basic movements. Those are the ones that are going to work. And this is why they work, because it's force times surface area. The other thing I want to talk about very quickly is the loadability. I don't even think that's a word, but your ability to load a movement. So if we need force, we need to be able to add force on. So if we're holding something up over our head and in front of us and doing all this stuff, and we're creating these super long levers, or it's awkward, or it doesn't have a handle on it, there's a reason why weights have handles on them, dumbbells or barbells, because we have to be able to grip them to load them properly. So things that we can load well is going to be barbells, dumbbells, machines, things that are designed to be loaded, not weird, crazy, funky movements where we're upside down and then got 10 bands hanging off of our body. So high quality movements, that's what they look like. How do we do high quality movements well? What does execution look like? These next two slides are it. So if you're zoned out, zone back in, and these next two slides are what we need to, this is the preface of all we were trying to get to today. Efficiency. So efficient movements are movements where as much force is going into the muscle as possible. So we talked about force being important, but here's the thing: we can use momentum and do a movement. So do the movement, if you want to call that doing the movement. So doing a barbell. So if I have a row, for example, and I'm pulling it towards my body, but I'm spinning, which is using my obliques and my glutes and all the other stuff to generate momentum. And then at the end, I just kind of like just keep it coming towards me and let it rocket back down. That's momentum. And people are like, oh, of course you're not going to jerk your body around, but you would be surprised how much momentum you are actually using in your workouts. So what we want to happen is, let's say you're doing a dumbbell row of 65 pounds. We want like 60 of those pounds going into the back muscles that we're trying to train, right? So we want those muscles to be connected to that weight. That's my muscle connection. So it's your ability to contract the muscle against the load. We're not just doing the movement. We're using that movement to train the muscle. So we're trying to get into the my muscle connection to what we're trying to train, and we're going to squeeze it against the resistance to create movement. We're not just creating the movement for the heck of it. So if you look at somebody and they say, well, you know, lift big weights or whatever, and you'll lose body fat and you'll do all that stuff, or you know, if you push really hard, so I'm going to add my weights. Well, if you pick up a 100-pound weight and you do it with a low level of execution, I'm going to tell you exactly how to do this in a second, so don't freak out. So if you pick up a 100-pound weight, you do with low level execution, low level quality, you're only getting 60 pounds of tension actually into the muscle. The rest is lost to momentum. The rest is lost to other muscles around your body that you're not even trying to train. And those definitely aren't getting trained because they're definitely not, you know, they're getting even less. So that same, you know, 65-pound versus 100-pound weight, you're both getting 60 pounds of tension in there. But the difference is you're not beating the crap out of your joints in the process. And that what's every guy complaining about? Oh, my shoulders hurt because I bench press. I'm trying to get a big chest. It's because you don't know how to bench press properly. And we don't know how to create stability and move our body the right way. Some of us have joint, imbalances and all stuff. And, you know, that's one of the first things we work with when we work with people, with our trainers, is a movement assessment to fix those things ahead of time so we don't have to take 10 steps back later. However, what is going on is we're just like, well, I got to add weight on. That must be why I'm not growing. Well, you're not growing because the force isn't actually on the muscle you're trying to train. So we got to get that force there as well. So we can't just settle for, okay, there's weight. I wrote that down on my book. It's there. We got to make sure that it's a high quality execution and that weight is actually getting on our muscles. This is it. This is today's talk right here. How do we actually do this? Create stability, which is the opposite of momentum, right? So you'll find that you have to lower your weights whenever you do this. And like we just said, you're not actually lowering the load that is going into the muscle. When you write down in your book, it may look like the weights went down, but you know the execution went through the roof, so therefore the tension actually went up. I've seen people go from using 80-pound dumbbells doing something down to 50 and start growing because they're getting 30 pounds out of that 80-pound dumbbell actually tension on the body. Now they're getting all 50 of that 50, and then boom, they're skyrocketing. And they're like, man, my shoulders don't hurt anymore. My hips don't hurt. Well, I wonder why. So that's a good thing for your joints. So creating stability. So if we're talking about a dumbbell row, what I would do is I have one arm maybe on a rack or a bench. I'm pushing into that. I have my back leg pushing into the ground. I'm squeezing my glutes. I'm squeezing my abs. I'm trying to create stability through my whole body and create rigidity. And that is my setup for every movement that I do. That's why machines have leg pads on them, all that stuff. So use that stuff. Create forcefully. If you're doing a lat pull down, for example, forcefully drive your legs up into that pad, brace your core and everything in your body that's not moving, and then do it and see if that doesn't just absolutely transform how you train. Create stability. It's a skill. Explore it through all of your movements. When you're doing a bicep curl, you squeeze your glutes, squeeze your abs, squeeze your shoulders back, drive them down. And then guess what's going to happen? That elbow is not going to come flying forward because you're using your delt instead of your bicep. You'll wonder why your biceps aren't growing. So you have to do super high quality execution of those movements. And here's the thing. Eventually, if you don't do this, if you're just like, whatever, I'm not going to do that, you got to sling big weights, whatever. If you don't do this, eventually most people will get to a point, they get to a sticking point where either they had to do an insane amount of volume to get over this plateau, and that beats the crap out of their body because it's low quality volume, or they get stuck because you cannot use more momentum than you're already using without looking ridiculous. And all the surrounding supporting muscles are getting zero tension. So they're absolutely not letting you move. And the way that you train them too is just by creating stability. So we hit this point where it's like, we can't move the weight up anymore. We get stuck. And that's what will happen if you don't do high quality movements. So I will say this, when I talk about stability, when I talk about my muscle connection, excuse me, a lot of people over pursue this. Okay. So I've done this before when I first kind of started learning about this stuff about 7-8 years ago. I just like, it's like, if I didn't feel that perfect squeeze. So there's some other things that go into this. We'll talk about in a second. if you don't get that perfect squeeze, then we're like, oh well, you know, I'm gonna do whatever I need to do that. And I'm gonna lower the load and all that stuff. And they over pursue it, and you pigeonhole yourself where that's all you think about. There's other parts to this. So force is still part of the equation. Challenging your body is still required. And if we set the bar so high for stability and perfection that we don't actually train hard because we're chasing this impossible thing up here, lower that bar a little bit. When you're down here and you go to here, you're gonna get tremendous results. But going from here to here isn't going to do a whole lot for you. It's actually going to reduce the amount of load that you can use, and that's going to decrease your results. So learn where your balance is and have a base level of stability and mind muscle connection that you demand for your movements. And I will say things like squat, for example. What's a mind muscle connection look like in a squat? Well, one, you should feel it in your glutes and your hamstrings and your quads, and you should have your toes in the ground, but you're going to feel your abs bracing and your lats bracing and your shoulders squeezing against the bar and all that stuff. So it's full body. So, right. So you can't connect to every single muscle with high degrees of focus, in movements like that. Same thing with like a deadlift and a bench press, but things like a lateral raise or a curl or and pretty much any back movement, leg curls, leg extension, all that stuff you can do with super, super high degrees of mind muscle connection. So the other thing is your tempo and your speed. So you're not an athlete. So you're not trying to create momentum. You're not trying to create explosiveness. You want to slow your tempo down. Most people go way too fast. And because they can't control their momentum because they're using way too much weight because they don't know what high level execution is. And they don't know that, which you know now, that if you actually lower the load and squeeze against the load and more of that load is going into the muscle, you actually get more results. It's not about the number that is on the barbell or on the dumbbell or on the machine. So one of the best pieces of advice I have ever gotten. So slow it down, about 4-second negative on everything is a good kind of rule of thumb. You can speed it up, you can slow it down. It depends on where you're at. Use your wisdom. You'll figure it out. I promise. You're a smart person. Don't skip the part that you always skip. That came from Tom Purvis, who is the most brilliant. I can say this with a high level of confidence that Tom Purvis is the most brilliant English speaking, at least because I can't understand other people, teacher of resistance training. And one of the best tips he's ever given me, well, it didn't give me directly, but is don't skip the part of your exercise that you always skip. So a lot of us, it's at the end, it's right before the bottom, it's the middle we speed through, whatever it is. Don't stop skipping parts of the exercise that you always skip. You always skip them because they're hard. And if they're hard, that means that there is progress to be made. And those are where our progress lies within each one of our reps. So if we're doing a row and we always get to the top, and as soon as it's like we ding a bell at the top and then we let it right back down. So what if we went up there and we stopped and we squeezed for 3, 4, 5 seconds and owned that range of motion? Or what if it was kind of at the bottom and we're always rocking it off the bottom? What if we stopped there and worked on that? Or what if we paused in the middle? What if we focused on having smooth movement all the way through that thing? Again, don't pigeonhole yourself, but also if you work on those things, you're going to get tremendous amounts of progress from that. So don't skip the parts of the movement that you always skip that are hard, because one, you're just going to create muscle imbalances and you're going to get hurt. And two, you're leaving progress on the table. And then also range of motion. More range of motion is king. So more range of motion and less weight produces results faster than more weight, less range of motion. There are instances where we focus on weight and we reduce range of motion to get over a plateau, and vice versa. However, that is not kind of the rule of thumb, and you probably don't need to worry about that a whole lot until you get more advanced. So use a full range of motion. If you can't use a full range of motion, doing the work to access that range of motion is like saying, like, well, I could start working on this dirt pile now with my shovel, or I can go fix my bulldozer in 2 days and then get through this pile a lot faster, aka make more progress. So what we talk about with, again, with our movement assessments that our trainers do with their clients whenever they get started, we talk to them about alignment of their joints and their muscle or the muscle firing pattern, making sure everything is working correctly. And the best analogy that I can give you on this is the Ferrari versus the farm truck. So if you had to take a farm truck that's going 5 miles an hour, it's sitting on the couch, it's not really moving, it's using a riding lawnmower, don't do anything really hard or test its limits. Yeah, it can have bad alignment. The wheels can be facing all different directions, and then the joints can be all jacked up. It don't matter. But if you take a Ferrari that's like that and you run at 200 miles an hour down the road, guess what? It's going to fly apart. Everything's going to break, and you're going to die. Right. So if we want super high performance, we have to have aligned joints. And that comes to our priming movements. We don't have time to cover those today, but working on your mobility, working on sitting down on a deep squat and controlling it actively, not just like sitting with a bar on your back, with an unloaded bar with a weight you can handle, doing that with all of your movements. That, so if you're having trouble feeling weird at the top of your barbell row, use an empty bar, go to the top and spend 30 seconds there. Explore all that stuff. Figure out how you can move your shoulders, your back, your hips, your toes. And I promise you, your toes have a lot more to do with your rows and your squats than you think. So high quality execution. I'm going to review this in a little bit. So that is execution, stability, your ability to contract your muscle against the weight, and how much force, how much efficiency can you have when you're talking about, if I'm using 60 pounds, I should get 55 pounds into my muscle. Explore that. You're not going to figure that out. That's an abstract thought in your head. Go to the gym and execute on that and see if that doesn't change the ways you train. Here's the other thing: is what matters most is progressive overload, which underlies all of this stuff. It's just that we can't progressively overload if we have low quality training, but you do have to progressively overload your body. And this is something that gets everybody, beginner, advanced, everybody. So one last caveat here, which is what matters most is that you must train harder. So your current tolerance, what you currently do, and you go, oh, that's hard, I'm going to put that down. Do another rep. Do another 2 reps. Sometimes we can do 10 more reps and we go, oh, wow, I'm actually not training as hard as I thought I was. This is what hard training felt like when I started. So now my brain thinks that sensation is hard training, but that sensation is no longer hard training. I had to chase a new sensation, which feels different and is actually training harder. That does not mean obliterated. Okay. We do not obliterate our bodies. We challenge our bodies. We give it a little bit more than what it's used to and cause it to grow. If you obliterate your body, you'll go backwards. That does not work. Making yourself feel tired. Listen, I love every once in a while just to go crazy and you just, give it the beans, go nuts, and test my limits. That's fun. Once a month. That's it. I don't do that to produce progress. I do it because I enjoy it. This is why we hate on boot camps all the time, because boot camps are not designed to get you progress, or guess what? I'd be running some. Boot camps are designed for you to feel like you worked out, so you can feel good about yourself and tell your friends, and your friends will come back and give them money. Boot camps don't produce progress. Like I said, so people go in, they sweat super hard, they get the crap beat out of them. They're like, oh, I worked so hard. This is going to work. And guess what? 6 weeks later, they're gone and they're back to their normal lifestyle. That stuff doesn't work. Beating the crap out of your body doesn't work. We got to take care of our body. We got to challenge it and cause it to grow. So we're going to train just above what we're capable of. Now, here's the caveat. And this is the bottom, by the way. Hard changes. What is hard this week won't be hard next week. So if I go and I do 55-pound rows and I'm like, oh crap, I need to challenge myself, and I do rows with 65-pound dumbbells, and then I'm like, okay, that was hard, that's what I need to do. Guess what? 3 weeks later, I'm like, oh, 60s is hard. Well, my body's already adapted to that. Now I need 65s. Now I need 70s. It changes every single week, and we have to keep that mental check all the time. Like I said, this gets absolutely everybody. Hard will change. You have to have those workouts where you really test your limits so you can figure out how far away you actually are. That is important, but you have to train hard. The underlying caveat, no matter what rep range you're in, you're doing low, medium, high reps, what pathway of muscle building that you are taking, whether it's sarcoplasmic, whether it's mechanical tension, whatever it is, the key to every single way for you to produce progress, improve your metabolism, get the good neurotransmitters flowing, get your hormones flowing, is that you train hard. Okay. I'm not saying go crazy. Hard is different for everybody. Hard for me doesn't look like hard for you. Hard for you doesn't look like, hard for somebody down the road. Training hard looks different for everybody, but hard also changes. So you need to track your workouts. We use an app called Everfit with our clients. It's absolutely phenomenal. I don't think there's a consumer version, so sorry. But get you a notebook. I'm a pen and paper guy. I love it. I do a bad job at this, so I'm guilty of this too. But track your workouts, because hard changes and you will forget, I promise. So how can we ensure that we can train hard? Good nutrition, good planning. So programming will take care of you. Knowing when you're going to go to the gym ahead of time so you're not stressed. Good nutrition, salt. You need sodium. I promise you need more sodium. One of the intro workouts that we have is absolutely amazing because it's got, and I'll tell you what, the sodium being in there, I love it. Super, super good. So warm-ups. Most people, here's the thing, we put our most difficult, and this is where we're almost done, I promise. We put our most difficult movements ahead and the front of the workout. If you do not warm up, the main drivers of progress will not be done very effectively because they are turning into your warm up. And by the time you get done with your first 2 exercises, you're finally ready to exercise. And guess what? Now you're doing the lower quality movements because we put them at the end. So warm up just do a warm up. I don't care what you do what you have to do to feel great. I found that if I walk at a pace where I can barely keep up with the treadmill without running for 3 minutes, it doesn't matter what I'm doing, that works for me. And then I do a little shoulder mobility to get my rotator cuffs turned on so I don't jack them up again, and I'm good. How can we also train hard? High levels of skill. Practice, 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 practice. You can't go out and drive a race car if you don't have your driver's license first. Most of you in the gym just got your driver's license, okay? I would highly recommend for 6 months, one time, and it will serve you literally for your entire life. Hire a driving instructor, hire a trainer. I know we're the ones that obviously benefit, our trainers benefit because that's their paycheck, but they're good at it. They're super, super good at it, and they can teach you these skills one-on-one over the course of 6 months, and you never have to hire them again. It's one of the best investments you could ever possibly make, apart from the changes you're going to see to your body, apart from the fact that you're going to learn a lot, apart from the fact that you're also going to get all the nutritional stuff. So skill. You can't train hard if you don't have high levels of skill. So practice your skill. Get those reps in. Be present when you do your workouts. All right. What if I'm too sore? 2 things you can do. You can increase your recovery, your nutrition, your sleep, reducing alcohol, more water, more steps, probably for most people, or you can reduce the load. Maybe you train too hard. Maybe you overreach. That's pretty much it. So we don't want to train less hard. So we probably need to focus on our recovery. So I talked about in the beginning of this, that this isn't holistic. This is the holistic part. Focus on all that other stuff is super, super important too, because all this that we just talked about, we cannot do if we're stressed, if we're not sleeping, if we're not eating right, if we're not sleeping right. Not that I said sleep twice. These movements are not fancy. They're not new. You're not going to see them on Instagram. You're not going to see because they are too busy working. Okay. These movements are not super, super fancy and nothing crazy. They're too busy working to be fancy and deserve a 15-minute YouTube video about our routine because they're basic. So what stops most people from doing these movements and getting in shape? Because here's the thing, you're going to encounter these barriers, and then we'll review and we'll be done. Skill, like I talked about, unfounded beliefs about training. Some people simply do not know all of the things that you now know because you watch this for 30 minutes, and they believe the wrong things about training. They believe that you should lose 30 pounds in 30 days, for example, whatever it is, and they don't do it. So they don't think it's important. They don't think it matters. Here's the thing. I spent 5 hours with our coaches teaching them that they need to program simple workouts that aren't fancy, that are not groundbreaking, that nobody's going to think is impressive because everybody wants to impress you with their workout plans or whatever. But because the research that and the things that back up the fact that you need to be doing these things are insanely complex, but the doing them is super simple. Okay. So there's all this information that says, do these simple things, but people don't know all this information because how could they possibly ever? So they don't realize that the simple, easy stuff that's not groundbreaking, not crazy and exciting is what actually works. So we got to get smarter, and that's why we do this, so you can be smarter. The other thing is consistency. Lose 30 pounds in 30 days. Thanks, it works. And all these other, what's the other one I like to hate on? Herbalife. I used to dance around it, but now I just jab right at them because I don't like them. I don't like their companies. Lose 30 pounds in 30 days. Well, guess what? You come doing all this information you learn, you come and you do it. And then guess what? You think, oh, well, maybe Chase wasn't talking to me because everybody else loses 30 pounds in 30 days. I see all their fake transformations on Instagram and it's not true. So the truth is that these take consistency. Nobody has ever actually, not on Instagram, fake, your fake Herbalife before and afters, actually gotten in shape and maintained it for a long time and done these things in 30 days. It doesn't happen. If it happened, then I would be turning those over left and right, but it doesn't because 1, people are complex. 2, fitness is your life. 3, physiologically it's impossible or unhealthy. Okay. So, and there's also after. That said, 3 times a week for 8 months is 35 workouts. If you can do 35 workouts, let's say over the 6 months, you really get after it. Hire a coach for 6 months to do that. That is what progress is going to look like. So people stop doing these about 6 weeks in. And really they're finally about to mount that first hill and see the mountaintop and get there. But they're for whatever reason we quit. So don't quit. Do them consistently. Time's going to pass anyways. Do it. I promise you will thank yourself later. And now you can actually do them with super high quality and super high execution, and you'll just boom, you'll start seeing results, and it's really amazing. But we got to train harder than we think, and we can have a lot more consistency than we think. And we also got to kind of buckle down and be tough on ourselves sometimes, and demand a little bit more out of ourselves. And if you have a hard time doing that, hire a trainer. So just take a points here before we stop, and then I'm going to stop my recording, which is do the right movements with high quality, train hard, because I promise you that you are stronger than you think. And I don't mean that as a Pinterest quote that you hang up on your wall. I mean, like, physically, you're stronger than you think. And track your workouts so that you know you're progressing. And then do all the things to support that, which is your nutrition, your sleep, your stress management. And if you want to, hire one of our amazing coaches, because they'll help you do all this stuff. So thank you for watching. I'm sorry this wasn't live. I wish it was live. I think we're going to switch back to StreamYard because they let us do live screen shares. Love you all. Thanks for all for watching. Please invite people to this group, invite people to this. If there's somebody you know of that could benefit from this, that is the payment I demand from you for all of this free information, is that you invite people so we can help other people and get them into our boat. Thank you very much. See you later.